Hello and welcome to the NerfDad channel. Today we're going to discuss the Rapidstrike CS-18. This is from the N-Strike Elite series. This is a fully automatic powered Nerf gun. It uses flywheel technology, so as long as you have the trigger pulled, it'll revving up and pull the trigger, it'll continue to shoot darts until it runs out. Some of the features on top of this, you got the removable stock. Not removable stock, but sliding stock, so the bigger people to move it on back, move it on forward. It also has a hatch on top, so you can unjam any guns, any jamming that happens and occurs. Pull that up. It also does come with a clear 18-round magazine. I like the clear because you can actually have a better seeing of how many ammunition you got left. This gun does go through ammunition pretty fast, so beware of that. It does take 4 C batteries, which are located in underneath the front barrel, and we slide it up in there. You pull the bottom trigger to get things going, and then you go ahead and just fire. That's the rate of fire standard. Modifications that we're going to do to this gun today is we're going to do a power modification to it to increase the rate of fire and the distance and the power that it comes out of. Also remove some of the safety features so we can fire without the clip in or with the jam chamber open. We're also going to do a custom paint job to this gun while we're taking it apart. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this gun apart. First thing you should do is remove the battery pack on the front. It has 3 screws underneath the barrel, 1, 2, and 3. Remove those first and take the whole battery pack out. As you can see, it takes 4 C batteries. When we do take this apart, you don't need to worry about anything on the stock, because we're not going to be doing anything with that unless you want to paint it. But in the meantime, when we take this apart, we're just going to leave the screws in there while we're doing the modification process. Also do note, when you do this, all these are all standard screws with the exception of the one right above the barrel with the front eyesight. That is a longer screw than the standard. And the ones here underneath the battery pack, and 3 on top of the tactical rail on top, those are smaller screws than the standards. So we'll go ahead and pop this off, remove all the screws, and then pop the top off. Please be careful when you do pop the top off because springs some like to pop off, so just be cautious when we do that. I'm going to remove these screws, and then we'll go ahead and get inside the guts. Okay, once you have all the screws removed, let's go ahead and remove the casing. So you'll pop right off. Careful of all the nub screws because they like to fly out, so make sure you take those out. And you'll notice that this part is still connected to the side. The one wire goes through. That's the negative feed from the actual battery pack goes onto this side, which connects to the flywheels and all the battery. Now, you can go ahead and remove the stock at this point. Just take it out. It stays in the way. Make sure you don't lose this pin. So you just keep that to the side. If you want to paint those, as ready for painting. I want to talk about some of the internals of this gun. First, you see the battery pack goes right up on top of here, and it's got multiple kill switches inside of it. This is a kill switch. This is a kill switch. And what these two do is you make sure that you have to have a clip in there before anything will engage. It also has a switch up on the top that if this hatch is open, or the access panel is open, it'll disengage as well. There are 3 kill switches in the actual trigger mechanism itself. This one up here actually controls the plunger. This has to be depressed for this plunger to actually engage. These 2 right here are to actually also engage the motor. We pull the trigger, this one will actually start pushing the plunger through. Once the trigger goes in, it depresses the switch, it engages on top of that. The bottom trigger is connected to this switch, and this actually engages the motor. for the flywheels. And what we can do is I can actually attach some leads so you can actually see these things in action. So I'll go ahead and attach those leads. And put the battery pack in there so you can actually see what these do. Now we'll put a clip in there just so you see how the triggers depress. So this one depresses, and this one here depresses. So these two are engaged, trigger hatch is open. So all you gotta do now is pull the bottom trigger, and now you have the motor going. Engage the bottom trigger, push the thing, and you can actually see the motor engaging on the top. So the modifications that I'm going to do to this gun is make it so that we don't have to have a clip in it. So I'm going to disengage this switch here, so we don't have to worry about this thing altogether. And I'm going to make it so I can pull the trigger without having to have the safety, the better release on top of it, as well as this trigger right here, spot right here, that prevents you from firing unless you have a clip in. I'm also going to, I'd like to have the hatch access available also, so we're going to bypass this switch as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the trigger mechanism. That'll be the first thing we actually take care of. Alright, the trigger mechanism is the next part we're going to do. There's actually, this whole piece actually moves out in one whole section, so there's no worries on this aspect of it. There are two screws you need to worry about. Here and here. You got to remove those screws, and this only thing is left to do is in the bottom here there's a clip that keeps it on. Now you also have to worry about these power switches right here. The best way to actually remove this altogether is first remove the screws, and then you're going to flip on the back side, and you're going to push from behind the switch plates. Don't have to worry about the bottom one here because that one doesn't need to be worried about. But this one and this one, push from behind, push those out and take them off. If you try and pry them from the front, they are going to probably break off of the actual switch and the circuit boards, and you're going to have a difficult time putting those back together. So let's go ahead and remove those screws, and then remove these two off to the side, and then we'll go ahead and get inside and start removing some of the internal switches. Okay, once you have the mechanism completely free of the switches, and again you push them from the bottom, not pull from the top, otherwise you will pull those off and then you have a hard time putting those back together. The two screws, which is located here and here, once those are removed, you should have easy access to get inside here, but make sure you take the switches off. This one went here, this one goes right to here. There are 5 springs inside, and they like to fly off as soon as you open this up. On the bottom here, there is a clasp that will keep it together from the 2 screws, so be very careful when you do this. I've already pre-pulled it off, so hopefully nothing will go flying out. Okay. This is what it looks like inside. This mechanism up here, this is what activates the front switch. This is what turns the plunger that pushes the darts through the flywheels. We're going to pull this off to the side. We don't want to lose this, so we'll set it off to the side with the spring. The next ones, we have 3 springs right here. This is all part of the trigger. This white piece right here, this is the lock. When you depress the power, it lowers the white piece, which actually engages the trigger itself, so the trigger can actually slide back and forth. Now this piece right here is what we're going to be worrying about, as well as this piece right here. We'll go ahead and remove this trigger for now. Let's set it off to the side. And these white pieces right here, this is part of the trigger catch that's used with the clip. So these pieces are useless. We can go and just set those off to the side. They make it so you don't have to have a clip in there now to fire. Put the trigger back in there like so. Now, at this point, you can be done with this area, or one more option you can actually do is if you want to still be able to pull the trigger without depressing the lock, all you have to do is take this white piece out and just shave off this tip right here. That's completely up to you. It's an option that you can do at this point. I'm going to do it on this gun, but it is not necessary unless you actually want to do it. Do not remove this white piece. If you remove the white piece and put it together without this white piece in there, the trigger will not, this will not engage the motor. This actually connects it to the motor switch. Okay, so I'm going to take this piece out, I'm going to shave this one off, and then I'm going to put it back together. And just to show you the piece removed, that small little piece I've taken out, the trigger completely froze free by itself and actually does engage the motor at the same time. I don't have to worry about a two-prong attack. Go ahead and put this back in together. Just be careful of loose springs as you're putting it back together, and make sure you assemble those in correctly and actually push them in the switches and make sure they're in tight. Okay. Okay, now we got the trigger one removed. We're going to go ahead and remove on this one. Now this one has to be depressed. It shows you when the clip comes in, it actually pushes and engages this trigger, so you can actually engage the motor. There's a couple of ways we can actually do this. One, push that back, put a piece of tape on top of it, or take this out and push a piece of tape or a piece of cardboard and keep this trigger pulled down. That's the easy way you can do that modification. If you're a little more perfectionist like myself, you can go ahead and just remove the trigger and solder it all together. There's two ways you can do this. It actually runs underneath, and actually the wires go right underneath here and connect up on here. So what I'm going to do is, because I like to make sure I got a see when the latest triggers go away, I'm going to cut these wires and I'm going to just solder them together so that the circuit will be complete at all times. Okay, for the switch right here, we can go ahead and once we just make this barrel out, and there's 4 screws right here. You can remove those 4 screws and you can actually pull the whole flywheel out. There's 2 screws right here on this bar. You can actually pull those up so you can just see how the wood wire starts from the battery pack, goes to the kill switch here, and then continues on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right here, and I'm going to reconnect these 2 circuits together. And as you can see, I've actually soldered it one solid piece all the way through, so the switch is no longer there, and one trigger with no clip in. Okay, the next one we're going to be doing is the access one. Now this is something that's completely, if you don't want to have the access, what this does is the access panel, while it's in, no problem. As soon as you retract it, the trigger engages and shuts the motor off. Forward, it's good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely bypass this one altogether. Something you can do for this one is simply take it out and just set it off to the side. Or you can actually cut the switch right down the middle, completely cut that off, and then you're going to be good to go. It'll still think it's actually out even though it's not. It's got 3 wires on it. It's got a yellow wire, a blue wire, and a black wire. If you cut the black wire, the switch is now null and void. You don't have to worry about it. It just bypasses everything. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the switch completely because I don't want it. I already cut all the wires, and I'm going to rewire for myself. I'm going to wire the yellow wire, which is right here. I'm going to wire it to where the blue wire connects onto the switch panel, so I don't have to worry about excess wires. And I'm going to remove the extra black wire altogether. That's just more neat competency for myself. However, all you have to do is cut the black wire up here and I would just put electrical tape on each side just to make sure there's no safety issues, concerns on for yourself. Okay, black wire cut, that's all you need to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solder the yellow wire to where the blue wire connects over to here. Keep the switch going. Okay, we are ready to put this back together. Things to remember when you are putting this back together: make sure you put the 4 screws on the flywheels that they're assembled correctly. You have the spring for the clip release is intact. You have the 3 slots for the tactical rails are ready to go, and the pin on the stock is seated incorrectly, and the access is actually in the correct grooves. Sometimes this gets messed up and then it won't slide back because you're not on the grooves correctly. You just slowly take the shell and line up. And glue it back together. Now remember the screws. The long screw goes right here above the front eyesight, and you have 5 small screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's where those go. So go ahead and screw everything back in together on the shell. It's all put together. All the screws are put back into it. You got the battery pack in the front and trigger with no guard-in, access panel open, and the fire was no problem. So insert a clip, and it fires off the whole clip with no worries. One last modification that we're going to do this, and this is the a voltage increase. Now what you can do is you take 4C batteries, standard 1.5 volts apiece, which gives it a total of 6 volts to power. One option you can do is you can rig a 9-volt battery to it, which will power it, or you can have these right here. These are 3.7 volt batteries that will increase. So what you have to do is when you run these through, you don't want to do too many of these, because if you do, you can burn the motors out. So what I like to do is I write 3 of these. I have cases for them, so these are spacers, so you can actually still have these on. I'm going to run 3 of the 3.7 volt batteries. I'm going to run 1 that's just a dummy battery. Warning, do not mix batteries. If you do this, don't put the 3.7 volts in with the 1.5 volts. That can cause damage on top of it. Also, if you do volt up your gun, do not leave it running for a long period of time, because you can burn the motor out. So we're going to put these in. 2.3.7 volts, so I'm running over 7 volts right now. Add another in there, I'm running over 10 volts, close to 11 volts. And 1 dummy. So run it in. I'll insert these in. And you can hear significant increase, as well as the speed going up. Put 1 clip in there. And just to give you a comparison, I still have, this is running just straight 4C batteries, stock, no changes done to this gun at all. And that's the shot how it goes with that one. So you can increase the fire as well as the distance on these guns. That concludes my modifications to the Rapidstrike. Next thing I'll do is I'm going to do a paint job on these, but I can just show you what those look like on Instagram. Please continue to follow me. If you have any further questions, please send them in the comments. You can feel free to email me at nerfdad@hotmail.com. Also follow my Vines If you have suggestions for other modifications you want to have, you can. Also, these guns or any guns that I have are for sale. If anyone is interested in buying one of my guns or modifications or custom paint jobs, email me at nerfdad@hotmail.com and we can discuss prices or what your needs are. Thank you for watching.